In what is quickly becoming a very sad reality that I have to talk about the election being stolen every single day, I also have to talk about, well, governors, mayors, general idiots just kind of abusing their power of the executive branch in order to lock down their states and cause more, well, addictions, more deaths due to the lockdowns without really caring for a virus that has, well, I'll say it again, a 99.99, statistically a 100% survival rate unless you're, well, a pensioner or brutally ill. But I'll make a compromise with you guys. How about two governors who suck dick at their jobs, two who are exceptionally great at their jobs and are doing a wonderful job despite what the media is trying to tell you, and how about a story that might warm everybody's heart. So first and foremost, we'll just get this shit out of the way. Andrew Cuomo, who I am not sure isn't involved in the mob, and Bill de Blasio, who I can say 100% isn't involved in the mob because he would definitely have been Fredoed by now. But they are closing down all schools because the lockdowns work, right? Yeah, they had one of the harshest lockdowns and one of the slowest reopenings ever. And, well, there was no indoor dine-in. Is that the proper way to say it? Because you could sit outside in cubicles, socially distanced, and only a certain amount of people at different tables. But, yeah, you could actually go to a restaurant there for a little while. And because it is, oh yeah, that's right, the middle of November, you can't really dine outside in New York City. So now they're just closing everything back down. And yeah, right back to the beginning. We made zero progress, apparently, according to Cuomo and de Blasio. But we'll give you the rundown of what they're up to. New York City public schools close as of today with no signs when or even if they'll reopen this year, or even what that might determine. Parents can, should, and will blame the woeful incompetence of Mayor Bill de Blasio and School Chancellor Richard Carranza, as well as conniving of the United Federation of Teachers, because they don't have to do as much. They still get paid the same, and they might even get hazard pay depending on what kind of a union they all adhere to. Yeah, not a big fan of unions. You guys might know that by now. I just think that they're all corrupt at this point, and there are very few that are actually still doing a good job of speaking up for what their workers and their union members actually want. Back when he was getting the UTF's consent to any reopening at all, de Blasio bound himself to an absurd benchmark for a total shutdown, a 3% 7-day rolling citywide average of positive virus tests. What the fuck? This is utterly unscientific and arbitrary. This is a opinion piece, but it has all the big heavy hitter stuff in it. Testing says little about what's happening with the serious virus cases and next to nothing about what's going on in New York schools, where kids and staff alike are seeing far lower positive test rates. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, even the World Health Organization doesn't call for school closures unless the area's positive rate hits 5%. But Bill de Blasio is doing such an exceptional job that he thinks that they can get down to 3%. They won't, not in a timely fashion. And you guys know that they're kind of flexing the idea of maybe having an expanded Christmas vacation or holiday break, whatever the idiots out there are calling it nowadays. Christmas vacation might be 2 or 3 weeks long. It's normally, 2 weeks? God, it's been a long time since I've ever had a Christmas vacation. But, yeah, they're floating the idea of a 21-day vacation, which is, really practical. But considering they're going to be closing schools for probably the rest of the year because, the coof is so dangerous. But let's continue in. Meanwhile, city Catholic schools aim to stay open all winter long. Oh, okay, so it's not a political thing, it's a Jesus thing. Without even the blended learning that the public schools inflicted on families that did want children going in full time. Charter schools might prefer the Catholic way, but they mainly operate in city-owned buildings, which are run by Team Blasio's chaotic rules. Which means that all of his bizarre edicts will work in tandem with charter schools, which kind of sucks a dick. You pay all that extra money to put your kids in a private school, but then they still get essentially run in all intents and purposes by the public school districts. That's fucking stupid. The mayor has been warning of a possible closing since late last week, yet On Wednesday, he still dithered on announcing the shutdown, delaying the press conference until word had already leaked since Carranza emailed principals first. Yeah, could you imagine this interview where Andrew Cuomo absolutely fucking lost his goddamn mind was delayed? Well, de Blasio didn't show up for 5 hours, not 5 minutes, not even half an hour, 5 goddamn hours. Yeah, this is the guy who's running the largest city in the United States. Poorly, in case you haven't got the drift. So roughly 300,000 children who'd been blended will now join the 700,000 or so all-remote classes enrolled in them anyways. Carranza's Department of Education seems unable to check on how many kids are actually logged on or even how many were showing in schools. Oh my god, so now that it's like, oh, okay, I go home and I just check in whenever the fuck you want, and I guess you'll learn whatever you need to. Just showing how important grade school is and junior high school is. And you know what? I don't know if they're actually keeping track of what's going on in colleges and high schools, but most of those have been online since, well, the beginning of the year, as far as I could tell. And it's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, the fact that, you can homeschool your kids up to a certain age, all the way up until about junior high school with a relative level of success. So why do we call teachers heroes again? I don't know. That always just seems to slip between the cracks for me. Might be controversial to say, but I don't think grade school teachers really deserve all the accolades that they get. So yeah, now we'll just jump to what Cuomo had to say here. Governor Andrew Cuomo quickly unraveled during a press briefing Wednesday, scolding a veteran reporter for what he described as an obnoxious and offensive tone. That's what you always have to do. You always have to parse out the conversation when you aren't winning the argument. So you have to start tone policing, and you have to start word adjudicating on the fly when you're losing your cool. The governor got heated after Wall Street Journal reporter Jimmy Valkind, because he's not on the payroll, asked Cuomo during an afternoon Albany press briefing whether New York City public schools will stay open or not amid rising statewide coronavirus infection rates. Oh dear. All right, first of all, let's try not to be obnoxious and offensive in your tone, because you're not 100% wrong. Oh, because you are 100% wrong. Hey, huh? Cuomo scolded Valkind before raising his voice. Back in my day. Fucking dickhead. After Cuomo said New York City will move into a designated medium-risk orange zone and schools will shutter if the Big Apple hits 3% infection rates, Valkind asked, does the city have the ability to close its schools? Are you now taking control, saying you have the power to make this decision? And for the millions of parents who want to know, are schools going to be open tomorrow in New York City? Yeah, that would be pretty fucking important if you have a 2-parent household, or even if you have a 1-parent household who requires, rather just leans on the school to take care of their kids during the day. If they're going to have to arrange some sort of childcare options where, you can sit them in front of a computer for 6 to 8 hours, but you have to enforce that they're actually doing that because they are kids after all, and y'all were young at one point or another. Cuomo mansplained the orange zone law, which has been in place for over a month. Well, didn't you know my arbitrary rules have been in place for 30 days? If you're going to pay attention, you would have known that we closed the schools in New York City 2 weeks ago. Oh, really? Cuomo said, referring to hotspot zones in Brooklyn and Queens. Yeah, but what about the rest of the city, asshole? The governor then barked, follow the facts. There you go. When you're losing the argument, all you have to do is just shout little one-liners. Wear a mask. Follow the facts. Listen to the science. Which sounds an awful lot like what the Auschwitz guards were barking. Valkind responded, as he said, still confused, and parents are still confused as well. Well then, you're confused, Cuomo rallied. No, they're not confused. You're confused. Everyone's confused. The whole court's confused. And then, like we learned earlier, but Cuomo said, because he hasn't got the memo at this point, the schools are open by state law. Earlier, the governor said the state law shows that New York City remains below the positivity rate of 3%, with a 7-day rolling average infection rate of 2.5%. But guess what? They're fucking closed. So, as you can tell, Andrew Cuomo does not have a grip on New York State, let alone New York City, because Bill de Blasio can't do his fucking job. But that's something you guys already knew. How about we dip over to Pennsylvania? Now, they got a lot of election shit going on, so you can't necessarily think that they're thinking, all that straight when it comes to COVID recommendations. But they were one of the first states to originally lock down. They were one of the first. I don't know if they were actually the first, but they were definitely one of those mid-March states that decided, fuck it, we're locking down. We don't know. This is going to kill everybody, not just your grandma. This is going to kill regular healthy people. But now Pennsylvania is mandating masks inside your home. It's not as terrible as the headline wants you to believe. I'll just go ahead and read it to you, but it's still retarded. And if you actually adhere to this, I've lost quite a bit of respect for you. Democrat Tom Wolf, that goes without saying, the governor for Pennsylvania is now demanding that citizens wear masks inside of their homes. As of today in Pennsylvania, you must wear a mask indoors or an enclosed space where another person or persons who are not members of an individual's household are present in the same space, irrespective of physical distancing. So, okay, it's not as bad as saying, okay, if you're alone in your house, you have to wear a mask. How would they enforce that constitutionally? Oh, God. Why did I even bother bringing that up? They don't care about the Constitution anymore. It's only when people who aren't a part of your household are inside your house. Still, don't follow this shit. It's fucking retarded, people. Honestly. If you're that scared, don't have people over to your house, okay? And start planning your way to check out because you are just way too frail for this world. But that's the new skinny on Pennsylvania, and I think that's enough bad news for what's going around right now. Because, okay, we all knew New York was losing their mind. We all know there's some fishy shit happening in Pennsylvania. Those two states kind of go hand in hand. Philadelphia is referred to as like the fifth borough of New York because, well, that's where it's just basically another borough, or it's just basically another suburb of New York City. Because when Jersey filled up with all the trash, they just decided to pour over on the Pennsylvania side because at least it's easy to get a firearm there. And outside of, the big cities there, it's mostly just a Republican state anyways, so. I said we got half of the video as good news. And let's stay on that side of the country, and let's just head south, as far south as you possibly can. What was formerly the laughingstock of the Union is now governed by a man who actually has grasp on the facts and is letting you... I think the funnest way I can put it, and don't take this as legal advice, is now you can hunt rioters. Or people who are eluding your shops, rather. So, if you're a small business owner and somebody decides that they're going to come in, you can defend your shop without having to worry about facing a felony. Just make sure that they are trying to loot your store. Just don't, start taking the law into your own hands. I am the law. Ron DeSantis promises to keep Florida open despite recent coronavirus case surge. The fucking hurl, man. Oh my God, these people. Well, as you can see there on the fourth little slide there when I put my cursor over this sissy bitch that they interview. The fucking Hill, man. Supposed to be this objective, nonpartisan bastion of information because you know what? They have a Republican and a Democrat on their morning talk show and they just hash out all the information. Meanwhile, you look at their trending tabs, everything that's on the side there, and it's just another New York Times outlet. So let's debunk this one on the fly. Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis said this week he has no plans of imposing new coronavirus restrictions despite a recent surge in cases there. But guess what? Nobody's dying. The governor will not lock down and hurt families who can't afford to shelter in place for 6 weeks, DeSantis' offices said in the statement to local media, especially not for a virus that has a 99% survival rate. One area of concern is assisted living facilities, which he did not put infected caregivers into. Meanwhile, Cuomo, Phil Scott, Gretchen Whitmer, Jay Inslee, Gavin Newsom, they all did. But you don't hear that. And DeSantis didn't, by the way. Florida reported more than 10,000 cases on one day over the weekend. Won't somebody please think of the children? CBS 12 in West Palm Beach reported, and the snitches. A spike in Republicans' office attributed to an irregular amount of testing being reported to local health officials. And if you didn't have tests, you wouldn't know if people were sick. And guess what? All of the death statistics would look a lot fucking worse. It is cold as shit up here, so if I start to shiver a little bit, just take that with a little grain of salt because it is, we deal with Celsius up here, and Fahrenheit, come on, for as much love as I have for the United States, your Fahrenheit system's a little bit fucking goofy. It's about 20 below up here, so. Which not but 2 weeks ago, it was above freezing, so fucking northern Alberta is a weird place. Today, we're back down to 4,500 cases and a 7.3% positivity rate. A spokesperson said, "We believe yesterday's high number was due to a large submission file and skewed the numbers for that day when it comes to assisted living facilities in the state, which face a higher risk of infection for coronavirus. The governor plans to be prepared to move therapeutic and prophylactic assets to those facilities as needed." Exactly. The dude is prepared for what might happen. He is not overreacting. He is not listening to the pearl-clutching group of mayors that call on DeSantis to issue a mask mandate. Well, if you're so concerned about your city, do it in your city. I wouldn't be for it. I'm not for the mayor who's called it around here and is imposing $100 fines and $200 on the stores that don't enforce the $100 fines for the individuals. So I like the fact that he is looking at the fact that DeSantis has a giant geographical landmass that he has to govern over, and he can't treat Miami like he'd have to treat Tallahassee, and he can't treat Orlando the same as insert small town Florida here. No, he's looking at it as a case-by-case basis. He's making sure that his T's are crossed and his I's are dotted. DeSantis, who's consistently resisted statewide lockdown measures since the pandemic and has earned praise from President Trump for doing so, has repeatedly insisted governments need to focus on protecting more vulnerable population from the virus than the general public. Oh my God, just a man after my own heart, this. But of course, the Hurl can't end their reporting on a positive note. Final thing. As of Wednesday, more than 890,000 people in Florida have been diagnosed with coronavirus and nearly 18,000 people have died. Oh my stars. But just because they want to end on a downer doesn't mean I have to. If I really had one message for folks, it would be protect the vulnerable, he said in June. Now, part of that is doing things like supporting our long-term care facilities. I mean, people going to business is not what's driving it. Yeah, take after the people who are most vulnerable. And all the young, and by young I mean under 65, people can go out there and live their life. And if they decide that, the sniffles and a little bit of a cough is going to impede their life, feel free to self-isolate at home. That is totally up to you. As an American citizen, you have that right. And my dream ticket for 24, if President Trump doesn't have to run again in 2024, would be half Ron DeSantis and the other half of this wonderful, I'll just say it, attractive woman right here. South Dakota Governor Noem explains stance on mask mandate won't enforce to make people feel good. I cannot say enough good things, and I can say more things that might get my channel shut down. I'll just say good job. Noem's office has declined to enact a statewide guidelines such as those active in New York. South Dakota is quite different than New York and Ohio and many other states. Could you think of a less applicable comparison than South Dakota to New York? I'll sit and wait. Yeah, exactly. I can't think of any. Republican South Dakota Governor Noem stood behind her decision to not enact a statewide mask mandate on Wednesday, despite calls from medical experts to do so amid a surge in COVID-19 cases. Oh, we'll get to those experts in a hot second after this one. Well, a number of cities in South Dakota have enforced local rules requiring masks to be worn in public. That is totally up to them. Noem's office has declined to enact statewide guidelines such as those active in New York, Ohio, and many other states. However, a rising number of cases in South Dakota this week prompted renewed calls for action at the state level. There are many states that do have mask mandates in place and some that do not. But I look at the rate of spread, and the fact is that cases are increasing in many of those states as well, Noem said at a press conference. Exactly, because these lockdowns are doing nothing but just pushing off the curve. They were never about flattening the curve. They were never about stopping the spread. It was more or less just kind of dragging this out as long as humanly possible. It was almost like they took advantage of a crisis and used it for, I'm just going to go ahead and say, perhaps electoral gains? I don't know, just floating that idea out there. South Dakota State Medical Association, the largest group representing local doctors, said Wednesday that it strongly supports a statewide mask mandate. I'd strongly support you shut the fuck up. Exactly. Got him. Good comeback. South Dakota is experiencing one of the worst COVID-19 outbreaks in the country. Oh, really? With state officials reporting 219 deaths in November alone as of Monday. I'd say you might want to rethink your stance if that was 219 deaths in a week. It is the 18th today. And here's the updated statistics. Guess what? Nobody died today. Guess how many people died yesterday? That would be 0. 0 people died yesterday. I'm just going to go ahead and err on the side of the fact that somebody who didn't have to take stimulus money for their state probably knows how to handle this better than most other governors. So, yeah. Noem said cities and local governments have the flexibility to implement mask mandates based on the needs of their communities. Exactly. That is all I want. Proper use of power by officials. Don't go around wielding it like you're some sort of power-crazed idiot. There's a reason why I have 2 people perfectly framed up in the top corner there. No, just do what's best for your entire state. Don't just cherry-pick the bad ideas. Because if you want to do that, all you need to do is just hop on the State Medical Association. Or you just need to listen to everything that Lord Fauci has to say and live in fear at all times. But I think they might want to walk back their religious adherence to science, or just watch this study go completely under the rug. Now, there's one that I cited earlier where it was, masks aren't effective that much unless they get washed at an obscenely high temperature, and your regular one-ply homemade masks, or whatever, the fancy masks that you wear out in public, they got nice little flower patterns on them, don't really do a whole hell of a lot. But yeah, we got something new coming out today that really might cut right to the core of all of these mask authoritarians. Major study finds masks don't reduce COVID-19 infection rates. My stars. Color us shocked. A high-quality, large-scale Danish study finds no evidence that wearing a face mask significantly minimizes people's risk of contracting COVID-19. Yeesh. The randomized controlled trial found no statistical significance in coronavirus infection rates between mask wearers and non-mask wearers. In fact, according to the data, mask usage may actually increase the likelihood of infection. Yeah, buddy. The recommendation to wear surgical masks to supplement other public health measures did not reduce, and that is surgical masks, reduce the SARS-CoV-2 infection rate among wearers by more than 50% in a community with modest infection rates with some degree of social distancing and uncommon general mask use. The authors summarized the results. While mask wearing has been advertised by health officials all around the world, including U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, and Dr. Lord and Savior Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Hopefully, after the end of this year, after the cure eventually gets out there, I won't have to remember that Dr. Anthony Fauci is a person, or that the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases is a real place. I'm starting to think that they're all just figments of my imagination. I'm just going to wake up a week after my birthday and this was all just a horrible, horrible dream. The Danish researchers found that there is no statistical significant difference between wearing a mask or not in preventing people from contracting COVID-19. In a third post hoc analysis, which investigated constellations of patient characteristics, we did not find a subgroup where face masks were effective at conventional levels of statistical significance, researchers found. The randomized control trial, which is considered the gold standard, yes it is, designed for scientific research, had a large sample size of more than 6,000 people. Most studies conducted on various kinds of face masks against various coronaviruses are neither randomized controlled trials or conducted regarding the specific SARS-CoV-2 virus currently affecting the world. After a month, 42 of the mask wearers in the study, 1.8%, were infected with the virus, while only 53 of non-mask wearers, 2.1%, were infected by the virus. Statistically, this is not a significant difference between the two groups, suggesting these infection differences were the product of chance, says study authors. The between group difference of 0.3 percentage points. Multiple imputation accounting for loss to follow-up yielded similar results, the study states. Although the difference observed was not statistically significant, the 95% CIs are compatible with the 46% reduction to a 23% increase in infection. Some have cherry-picked examples of Denmark's population at time of the study was less than 2% infected. Participants were in charge of reporting their own COVID-19 tests and other limitations. Dr. Christine Lane, editor-in-chief of the Annals of Internal Medicine, where the study is published, told the New York Times research shows masks are not a magic bullet. And that is a doctor from the Annals of Internal Medicine. A legitimate doctor who practices. That's weird. I thought all doctors on panels haven't seen a patient in the past few decades. Perhaps I read the news too much. The mask study, one of the largest of its kind ever completed. These findings do offer evidence about the degree of protection mask wearers can anticipate in setting while others are not wearing masks and where others public health measures, including social distancing, are in effect. The study states, noting that the trial did not test the role of masks in source control of SARS-CoV-2 infection. So yeah, masks aren't a be-all, end-all, okay? And that was surgical masks. Way better than those $20 masks that you can buy with your favorite sports team logo screened onto the side of it. You know what? It makes me feel better about the approach of DeSantis and Noem as opposed to Cuomo and Wolf there. Yeah, do what you feel like you need to do, guys. I think masks are stupid. I'll wear one because I don't want to have to pay $100 because I ain't got that. But at the same time, when the opportunity is raised that I don't have to wear a mask, I sure as fuck won't. But that's just me. I'm all about individual freedom, and if you aren't and you want to enforce masks everywhere you go, well, we don't have to be friends. Anyways, guys, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.